Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking some truly fascinating research on why a full 40% of the population's brains are literally immune to the spell of sports. I mean, picture this, right? It's the final seconds of a championship game. An 80,000-seat stadium is absolutely vibrating with tension. Grown adults are gripping their seats, tears are streaming down their faces, vocal cords are completely shredded from screaming at a leather ball bouncing across a field. And you? Well, you're just sitting there feeling absolutely nothing. You're baffled, you honestly just don't understand the hype. Well, guess what? You are definitely not alone. And the incredible truth here is that not caring about sports doesn't make you boring, and it absolutely doesn't mean there's something neurologically wrong with you. Actually, today, we're going to look at the hard science that proves your brain is simply running on a totally different, highly efficient operating system. Let's take a quick look at today's agenda. We'll start with the global sports divide, then jump into the neuroscience of fandom, move on to the psychology of the self, look at parasocial versus direct action, and finally wrap up with anchors in the storm. All right, section 1, the global sports divide. Let's dive in. So the global sports industry is worth over $500 billion. $500 billion. That's larger than the economies of many entire countries combined. But why is it so incredibly gigantic? Well, it's because this industry is directly plugging into ancient evolutionary hardware in the human brain that desperately craves tribal belonging. I mean, for thousands of years, belonging to a group wasn't just some fun weekend hobby. It was a pure survival requirement. The tribe protected you, they helped you hunt, and they kept you alive. Today, we've essentially traded fighting literal saber-toothed tigers for screaming at referees, but our brains are running the exact same ancient code. Sports, in a very real way, act as our modern tribes. Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark divide. While 60% of the population is swept up in all this tribal frenzy, the remaining 40% are completely immune. If you're in that 40%, you are running on a totally different neurological operating system. Think about it. While the majority burns massive amounts of mental and emotional energy on the victories of complete strangers, your brain is quietly protecting a far more valuable resource. And science actually confirms that this indifference might just be one of your biggest evolutionary advantages.
Moving right along to section 2, the neuroscience of fandom.
To really understand this, we need to talk about identity fusion. This is a psychological phenomenon where the line between the personal self and the team completely disappears. It perfectly explains why a fan's brain treats a stadium like a literal battlefield. When a fan puts on their team's jersey, they're essentially wearing a psychological uniform. During a match, science shows their brain doesn't even treat it like a game. It releases a chemical cocktail almost identical to what our ancient ancestors experienced before going into actual war. They get a huge spike of testosterone when their team is winning, which creates feelings of genuine dominance, and then a flood of cortisol when they're threatened, pushing them straight into fight or flight mode. Their brain's reward center basically explodes, making them feel as if they personally achieved something extraordinary. And this underlying software runs heavily on dopamine. But dopamine isn't just about pleasure like most people think. It's about desire and the anticipation of the unknown. Dopamine spikes the absolute hardest when you're waiting for a result. That creates what's called a reward prediction error. Basically, a powerful chemical jolt triggered by unpredictable surprises. The human brain is completely obsessed with what it cannot predict. Just think about the structure of a typical match. Minute 1, the whistle blows. Minute 45, it's halftime. Honestly, by minute 89, the game can actually be painfully boring. But then, at minute 91, boom, a sudden goal. You have 89 minutes of agonizing waiting, culminating in a massive dopamine spike. This uncertainty is absolute rocket fuel for the passionate fan. It's perfectly designed to hack that reward system. So, what exactly is happening to the immune group during this exact same thrilling match? Well, studies from the University of Chicago and the NIH suggest that the immune group has genetic dopamine receptor variants that act like a biological filter. Your dopamine system simply isn't fooled by a virtual victory on a screen. It demands something real, something with a clear cause and effect. So while a fan's brain is screaming opportunity or danger, your brain applies biological noise filtering. It just logs the event as a bunch of strangers running around in matching laundry and treats all that stadium drama as mere white noise. Sure, you don't get those fake emotional highs, but you also completely avoid the deep, irrational emotional crashes. Let's shift gears to section 3, psychology of the self. The way fans talk is incredibly revealing. In social psychology, this behavior is called basking in reflected glory. Just listen to the pronouns. Fans use we to bask in the glow when winning. We won. We're the champions.
They literally psychologically merge themselves with millionaire athletes. But watch what happens when the team loses badly. Another mechanism immediately activates to cut off that reflected failure, and they quickly switch to they to protect their ego. Suddenly it's, they played terribly, they embarrassed me.
This really highlights the profound difference between an extended self and a rigid self-boundary. For a fan, their sense of self is a highly flexible circle that so easily expands to absorb external victories. When the team wins, the joy neurologically exists right inside their sense of self. But if you don't watch sports, your self-circle is drawn tight and closed. It only includes your thoughts, your actions, and the results of your own hands. Your brain is running on direct causality. It sends a cold, logical signal. Wait, I didn't touch the balls, so why should I feel proud?
And this strict boundary results in a massive psychological advantage: emotional autonomy. Because your operating system absolutely refuses to process emotional data that doesn't come from your own personal effort, you end up building your self-worth on independent pillars, things like your personal skills, your work, and your relationships. This provides an incredible amount of internal stability. You're basically storing your happiness on a secure hard drive that game scores simply cannot access.
All right, Section 4, parasocial versus direct action. Now, if you're in the immune group, I bet you've asked yourself this exact question. Why should I spend 3 precious hours of my Sunday watching 22 other people work? This thought is the physical manifestation of your subconscious. It shows a remarkably high need for personal agency and a deep, deep discomfort with watching strangers live their lives. You're constantly asking yourself why you should invest precious energy in an outcome you cannot influence. And this isn't arrogance, folks. It is simply your brain demanding control and refusing to just be an extra sitting in the stands. What we're looking at here is a fundamental clash. On one side, you have people investing emotion into a parasocial, one-way relationship where they have zero control. Sports are essentially a spectacular drama without any real-world risk. Fans accept the role of spectator. They love the team, but obviously the team has no idea they exist. You, on the other hand, crave direct engagement. You want to write a piece of code, plant a tree, learn an instrument, or build a business. You want real reciprocity. Put the effort in, get real results out. This drive for direct reciprocity is perfectly captured by what's called the IKEA effect. It's the psychological tendency to love a crooked chair that you built yourself way more than a flawless, perfect one you just bought from a store. People who are immune to sports are essentially addicted to the IKEA effect of life. You want your hands dirty, and you absolutely refuse to outsource your emotions. You seek a flow state through your own action. In the end, indifference to sports is really just a quiet declaration that you are way too busy living your own life to spend hours watching others live theirs.
And finally, let's move to Section 5, anchors in the storm. Society often views people who don't watch sports as detached, kind of aloof, right? But look at the actual data. Sociological studies show that on a Monday morning, right after a famous local team loses, the office just feels heavy. Productivity drops sharply, people are irritable, tired, they're completely distracted. Think about that. The emotional state of millions depends entirely on the performance of complete strangers. But the immune group? You maintain your Monday morning productivity, your emotional stability, your clear-headedness, and your logical problem solving. While millions suffer these massive drops in productivity, the immune group steps up with completely unhijacked mental bandwidth to keep the systems running smoothly.
So the crucial point here is that indifference isn't a flaw at all. It's a vital ecological balance that provides stability when the rest of the tribe is just swept up in collective frenzy. I mean, think back to prehistoric times, when the whole tribe was dancing wildly around the fire in celebration, or screaming in absolute panic. The collective survival of that group depended on the small few sitting quietly at the edge of the firelight, the ones staying alert, watching out for predators, and sharpening spears for tomorrow. You are the modern descendants of those people. You are not detached. You are the anchor of reality itself. Your dopamine system, your genetics, and your innate need for personal agency are advanced features of a truly unique operating system. And since your operating system thrives on direct agency rather than borrowed victories, I want to leave you with this question to ponder. You aren't on the bench, so what game are you building instead? Because the game you're playing has no referees and no cheering crowds, but it is the incredible game of building your own life. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep building.